Okay, so there's a little bit to report out here. It will take me just a minute, so please be patient. On item 2.1, student discipline, the motion was made by trustee Paoli and seconded by trustee Statham to approve a stipulated expulsion agreement for student 25-01. The motion was approved by a vote of 4-0 with one absence. Item 2.2 for student discipline, a motion was made by trustee Paoli and seconded by trustee Statham to approve the stipulated expulsion agreement for student 25-02. The motion was approved by a vote of 4-0 with one absence. Item 2.3, student discipline. Motion was made by trustee Paoli and seconded by trustee Statham to approve the stipulated expulsion agreement for student 25-03. The motion was approved by a vote of 4-0 with one absence. Item 2.4, student discipline. Motion was made by trustee Paoli and seconded by trustee Statham to approve the stipulated expulsion agreement for student 25-04. The motion was approved by a vote of 4-0 with one absence. Item 2.5, student discipline. Motion was made by trustee Paoli and seconded by trustee Statham to approve the stipulated expulsion agreement for student 25-05. The motion was approved by a vote of 4-0 with one absence. Item 2.6, student discipline. The motion was made by trustee Paoli and seconded by trustee Statham to approve the stipulated expulsion agreement for student 25-06. The motion was approved by a vote of 4-0 with one absence. Item 2.7, motion was made by trustee Paoli and seconded by trustee Statham and approved by a vote of 4-0 with one absence to rescind a certificated resignation and to approve a certificated leave of absence. No other action was taken.
Okay, as far as approving the agenda, are there any changes, additions, deletions to the agenda?
Nope, as presented on our part.
Okay.
The only thing I noticed is it looks like, and I guess it doesn't, I didn't approve the agenda, but I think the school plan for Redwood, the safety plans was attached, so I'm not quite sure what we're approving. So I didn't know which, if it's just the wrong attachment and we're actually going to be approving the student achievement plan.
Should be the SPSA that we're approving, yes.
Yeah, the school plan. So I mean, I guess I can still approve the agenda, we can deal with it at time.
Okay, and which item was that?
11.4. Then I was, because we do have another, it was SARP in there too,
Mhm.
which I guess is the data grid, which is fine. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure, maybe.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we could also move that to Tuesday's agenda if we need
Yeah,
to for
exactly.
approval, so.
Okay, so I'll just make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye, okay. All right, is there any public comment on non-agenda items?
Yes, there is. So we have two public comments that were sent by email after the last board meeting. So I'll read them in the order that they were sent to us. The first is from May 12th from Annie Cudney with the subject of student safety. I think having the SRO back on campus is a good start towards student safety, but with seeing videos of fights in the school bathrooms and classrooms, I would like to know what else can be done. Can we try to organize the clearance for volunteers to come as safety monitors? This way they can also be near the school and maybe could have helped prevent the most recent incident on 5/8 when a student was jumped by many other kids. Maybe we also we could look into having and using the Stop It app. There's information on what is the Stop It app. It is an anonymous reporting platform designed to empower individuals to, particularly students and employees and community members, to report safety concerns, misconduct, or compliance issues without fear of retaliation. It is widely used in schools, workplaces, and public safety agencies to promote safer, more supportive environments. Key features of the Stop It app: anonymous reporting, 24/7 incident response center, two-way anonymous communications, access to mental health support, multiple reporting channels, applications in schools and organizations. Stop It is widely used in an educational setting settings to address and prevent cyberbullying, harassment, and threats. It enables students to report concerns and fosters a safe environment. Administrators can manage and reports securely and respond effectively. Organizations and public safety agencies also use Stop It to report misconduct and ensure protocol compliance. Signed Annie Cudney, sent by Yahoo Mail for iPhone. I would like to make a comment on that, as that we already use the Stop It app as the school district. On May 9th, I guess I'm going in reverse order, sorry. We have an email from Courtney Thiessen, and it's subject to Staff Appreciation Proclamation, request for support for our teaching staff, requesting for support and consideration for our teaching staff. Dear members of the school board, writing to share some professional concerns and reflections that I hope you will consider as we work together to provide the best possible educations for the students in our district. In recent years, our schools have faced increasing challenges retaining and recruiting qualified teachers. Many positions are filled by long-term substitutes, intern teachers, or educators working under emergency credentials. While these individuals often bring dedication and passion, they are not always eligible for tenure even after 5 years of service. This is an ongoing instability that affects both teaching teams and student learning experiences. Have we done exit interviews or surveys to find out why people are leaving teaching in the Fort Bragg Unified School District? Compounding this issue is the reality that new teachers are entering the profession at salaries that are less than half of what administrators earn. Understandably, many of our most skilled teachers transition into administrative roles. Positions that offer higher compensation are often more sustainable. While leadership roles are important, we cannot overlook the importance of keeping experienced educators in the classroom. Many educators struggle to afford housing, food, and the cost of raising a family in Fort Bragg or Mendocino. I know more than one teacher that works nights, weekends to support their family. Special education positions are particularly hard to fill, and many of us are seeking other employment, roles in the county or online. Our caseloads are at the maximum, and it makes it increasingly difficult to serve our most vulnerable students. Although we deeply appreciate your words of support, I am respectfully asking for action in the form of cost of living adjustment and fair compensation. These changes are essential if we wish to attract and retain qualified educators and ensure the stability and strength of our schools. I share these concerns not out of frustration, but out of care for our students, for our schools, and the future of education in our district. I hope you will consider these perspectives as you make important decisions about staffing, compensation, and teacher support. Thank you for your time and for your ongoing service to our schools. Sincerely, Courtney Thiessen.
Any other public comment on non-agenda items?
No, there's no additional comment.
Okay, so next up is patriotic exercise. I'm just going to take a few minutes and talk about Juneteenth, which is coming up next Thursday. Juneteenth celebrates the official emancipation of enslaved African Americans in the U.S., specifically in Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865. It commemorates the day when enslaved people were finally informed of their freedom after the Civil War, marking the end of slavery in the nation. Juneteenth has been officially recognized as a national holiday, reflecting the importance of the day and commemorating the end of slavery. It was recognized as a federal holiday in 2021 when the 117th U.S. Congress enacted and President Joe Biden signed the National Independence Day Act into law. Juneteenth became the first new federal holiday since Martin Luther King Jr. Day was adopted in 1983. It is considered the longest running African American holiday and has been called America's second Independence Day. And so just want to recognize that as we approach that next week. Okay, moving on to acknowledgements.
Alrighty. So the board would like to acknowledge the following. June is LGBTQ Pride Month and National Safety Month. National Flag Day is on 6/14. Father's Day is on 6/15, and the Juneteenth holiday is on 6/19. Also, the district would like to acknowledge our volunteers and parents. We couldn't do a lot of what we do without the support of our volunteers and parents. So we would like to thank them for their hard work and support in our school programs. It really shines during certain times of the year, and I really think the end of the year when we have folks supporting the field trips and the many different activities that happen really highlights the dedication our parents have to our students, our programs, and our community.
Thank you. And I just wanted to acknowledge Joe and staff for another successful school year. I know every year brings its own challenges that need to be overcome, and hurdles, and also its successes. And I know how much work and love and energy is put into each and every day through the district, and just want to thank you for another great year.
Thank you.
Okay, number 6, communication. If anyone's received any communication since the last meeting.
We're getting a lot of CSBA alerts for the Prop 98, all of that, with how the governor's rolling out his budget and how he's trying to offset his budget with money for education. So they're encouraging us to reach out and send the emails. But it's easy to populate.
And Prop 98 is?
We'll hear about it.
Perfect.
Yeah, definitely how we get our money, and they're taking a snapshot so that we get less money at this moment in time. There's thresholds, and it's a maneuver, we'll call it.
All right, anything else for communication? No? Okay, moving on to regular public comment. I'll read the disclosure. Individuals may address the board on agenda and non-agenda items during public comment and/or at the time they are under consideration by completing the speaker form provided on the table at the entrance and submitting to Renee Holes, administrative assistant. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers will be chosen in random order. A timer will be set for 3 minutes. If you do not complete your comment when the timer rings, you may leave a written comment for the board's information. Each person may only speak once per agenda topic and is required to address the board from the podium. A total of 20 minutes public comment per topic will be allowed. In exceptional circumstances, the board may consider adjusting the amount of time allowed for public comment. Public comment cannot be acted upon or discussed by the board in accordance with the Brown Act. The board may request staff to respond orally at the meeting or at a future time. If you require translation service, please contact Renee Holes at the district office 72 hours in advance by phone or email. Regular meetings will be videoed and broadcasted on the FBUSD YouTube channel. Members of the public who wish to address the board may also submit public comments prior to the start of the meeting by emailing boardmeeting@fbusd.us. Staff will make all attempts to share and record any submissions received prior to or during the board meeting. However, depending on timing, late submissions may be provided to the board after the conclusion of the meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes each, which is approximately 390 words. Is there any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Any public comment in the room? Okay. All right, moving on to reports.
So I realize good evening, everybody. I realize the first part of the report is looking at SIPs and goals, and that's coming up later. I can skip through to just the highlights part and then come back to that later, and then rather than repeat myself in 20 minutes or so. So Renee, if we want to scroll right through to the photo, thank you. There we go. So, just going to talk a little bit about some of the things that went on this year. It's been a good year, all Ted. I think we're tired and glad the year's over, but it was really, I think, on that last day, it was a bittersweet day. There was a lot of tears and a lot of emotion, it was a very heartwarming way to end out the year. But so this was our what we had of a campus-wide photo for yearbook. Probably about 40% missing, which is about on par for our attendance. But next slide. So I think one of the big things this year, and I think several of you got the opportunity to visit some of the art shows, but our art teacher, the person we work with for art, Sally Rodriguez, has done a really fantastic job this year of putting on shows. The students have helped set up the shows. So there's been a couple. The one in the middle was actually out in Ukiah. I think they ended it with 5 different shows this year, displaying student work. Several of the students sold pieces, which is exciting. But really, she's built a really fantastic art program She's working with the students 3 days a week now, and it's been a really big part of what we've done. So we're going to continue that next year. We're excited to keep producing. Our design labs. So, design labs is our kind of problem-solving class that runs for a few weeks. So basically, they're about 6 weeks, and we've had a variety of things going on. We've had students doing like a bike kitchen, rebuilding old beat-up bikes, and so now we have a little fleet of bikes at school for kids that want to use them. On the left there, we had a couple of different cooking labs where, in collaboration with Blue Zones, students were learning healthy eating and healthy lifestyle stuff, and in the form of a sort of a cooking contest each week. I got to be a judge, and so every Monday I got to try the snacks. They had a great time. Other labs we've had going on, we've had kids designing clothes and learning how to, tailor, things like that. We've had some photography things, lots of art-based stuff, some mural design work, things like that. So a lot of fun has been had with that stuff. And then Leaving to Learn, this is the career-focused stuff. Throughout the year, we've had students get out there. We've had college visits. We've had trade school visits, beauty school visits, college visits, you name it. So I think on the left there, they were at a fabrication plant. Right, I'm not sure where that was, but they were looking at cars of the future. They had their Mendo College trip, and they went to fire departments, a whole variety of places, and it's been a regular thing throughout the year, just getting out there and learning about careers and opportunities that are out there. Okay. Then the other side of Leaving to Learn is just the fun field trips, right? So you can see on the top left, we had a group go to their first baseball game, Sacramento. They went, the A's gave us free tickets to take a group out there. They had fun. The kid on the left was given one of the balls. I'm not sure we called it a foul ball or if it was one of those where they come and throw it to you, but he was very excited to get that. We had folks go to the San Francisco Ballet for the Nutcracker. There's a picture that's flipped upside down there for some reason, but that was a group last Thursday. Actually, I took a group to see a Neil deGrasse Tyson lecture in Santa Rosa, which was a lot of fun. Lots of hiking on the local trails. We took a couple of students to San Diego. We'll mention that again a little bit later. What else do we have? Monterey Bay Aquarium. Six Flags was always the big fun one at the end of the year. I think 80% of the school went to do that and had a good time. So a lot of fun stuff as well. It's not just out there doing careers things. It's team building and culture building and just having a good time. Okay. Next. Capstone. So, our seniors, one of their requirements to graduate is to do a capstone project. And this year was really nice. A lot of the capstones were really focused on sort of getting out there and supporting other people. So we had folks raising money for the food bank. In the middle there, we had a lot of students do classes. So in that particular one, a student who had done ceramics at the college came and taught a 6-week class for the students at our school, and she took care of all of that and showed them how to do ceramics. We also had students teaching history class. One of them did a history class for kids. He was very interested in history. We had another student go out and do art classes with Flockworks and do some stuff there. Bottom left, we had a group of students go over to Redwood and do a craft day, arts and crafts, and had a lot of fun there. Over on the right there, Jacob cooked 100 meals, or almost 100 meals, to be given out by the food bank. So they, everything from scratch, got it all prepped, got it all boxed up, and then delivered it, and they were distributed to folks in the community that could benefit from it. We've had, so a bunch of stuff that was that was a little bit sort of more community focused and helping others and what have you. Sports, actually not as big a focus this year. The sort of the waves of things, right? A lot of the athletes graduated last year, and there weren't so many folks really into it, but we did have some competition with the Coast Guard. continue to lose every game, but that's okay. They are active military and much fitter than us, so we're okay with that. But we did have some kids that went to a couple of different basketball sort of unofficial tournaments with big picture schools, and they had some fun there. Okay. Exhibitions, lots of fun exhibitions this year. We really started to focus on trying to increase family engagement. Kind of talk about that later, but these were just some of the senior exhibitions that as folks were wrapping up their school careers. A couple of nice things happened this year. On the left, we got the Model School Award from Department of Education for being an exemplary continuation school. And so we went down to San Diego, took 2 seniors with us to receive the award. So that was a really fun weekend down there. We got to do the San Diego art walk and a couple of other interesting things while we were there. And then on the right, the Blue Zones organization designated our site a Blue Zone site in sort of recognition of the focus on sort of whole person well-being and the work that Eric's been doing with the food, healthy eating, and then Mike and his crew of students in building out the garden and growing vegetables and things like that for us. So they recognize that, so we're now a designated Blue Zone school. And then we just had a nice year of people really just getting close and being good people with each other. It was a really good feel on campus this year. Everybody that came and visited went away feeling positive. So down there we've been doing some cookouts. We picked up a nice big grill, and we've been doing sort of regular cookouts now, which has been great. On that last day, we were doing a cookout, and the salsa music was on, and the kids were teaching each other to dance, and it was a really fun afternoon. But more interesting than me rattling on, I have Vanessa here who graduated last week, and she wants to come and say a few words about her experiences, and she won't like me for saying this, but I encourage you to ask her lots of questions. She's great. She came to us start of 10th grade, was in my advisory when I was in the classroom. She was like a deer in headlights when she first showed up, and we kind of met to see if it was going to be a good fit, and it's been really fun watching her grow into the confident young lady she is, and she's got plans. She's already started her next phase in life, but she'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to hand it over to Vanessa.
Hello. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Standing here today, looking back on my journey at Noya High School, this school was more than just a place of learning. It was the beginning of my growth, the spark that kept my motivation alive, and the community that shaped me into the person I always wanted to become. The moment I stepped into Noyo, I'd carried a deep sense of uncertainty, unsure of where I truly belonged or what my future held. Noyo had a reputation, and not a good one. People spoke of it as a school filled with troublemakers, a place where students had been failed by the very people meant to guide them, and considered that they would never amount to anything, or labeled as incapable simply because they didn't learn in the conventional way. But once I stepped inside, I saw the truth. These students had passions. Some dreamed of careers in healthcare, art, sports, mechanics, and so much more. We hold such a diverse community filled with ambition and confidence, proving that potential exists in every person, no matter the labels or limits placed upon them. Along with everything else that Noya High School has given me, I've gained invaluable life skills that I will carry with me forever, such as earning my food handler certificate, which taught me responsibility and the importance of safety in a professional setting, learning how to talk to strangers, which was once a challenge for me. It helped me break out of my comfort zone and build confidence in new social situations. Most importantly, I discovered how to be a functioning, supportive member of my community, understanding the impact I have on those around me. Through all of this, I've learned to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Growth doesn't happen in ease. It happens in the moments when I push myself beyond what I once believed I was capable of. And because of that, I am stronger, more capable, and ready to take on the future with determination and compassion. This school also taught me resilience, the kind that keeps you standing even when things get tough. It reminded me that success is not just about reaching a destination, but about pushing forward, no matter the setbacks or challenges that you may come across. Every long evening of learning and every hard-earned victory has modeled me into the person I am today. And as I stand here, looking toward the future and my place in my community, I carry the same determination with me. No matter where life takes me, no matter what hurdles I face, I will keep going, because Noyo High School did not just give me an education, it gave me a purpose, a belief in myself, and a fire that will never burn out. So thank you to all the hardworking Noyo staff who get to see the potential these students hold. You guys have not just changed my life, but you have changed every other student who you have come across. Thank you to everyone who has come here today to hear me not just talk about my story, but other students' stories. Thank you.
What are your plans after?
I'm currently taking a medical terminology summer course online, and then I know for certain in August, in the fall, I'll be taking a phlebotomy course in Ukiah.
Well, thank you for sharing. That was really great to hear. I know it's not easy to come and do these things, but you did a great job, and you should be very proud.
Thank you.
And Vanessa's also been a part of our community engagement team. So she and her mom have been able to come to some of our meetings that we've gone to out of the area to get some professional development about really helping to engage, and her viewpoint has been shared and gets to resonate through some of the work that we'll continue doing into the future. So you have an impact on us as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And also, just before we move on, Gary, I just wanted to say how impressive it was seeing all the adult school graduates this year. That was amazing. I mean, all of them were amazing, don't get me wrong, but that was awesome. So I don't know what you're doing to get more people to come in and get their diplomas, but it's inspiring. So.
And just to have a space that people can learn and feel vulnerable and feel like it's okay. I mean, that's how you learn. And over the years being on the board, there are so many people that I know that have gone through NOYO or not the mainstream, community college, or not community, community school in Mendocino, and they're all self-employed. So it really does, it must attract a certain brain, the way your brain works, that you wanna make the rules, you wanna pave your own way. And so I think that's a skill that's their personality, and I don't think it should be looked down upon if you want to have a different way of getting through these years, because it actually makes entrepreneurs. So I think it's really success.
They generally are folks that want to forge their own path.
Yeah.
And I think that's, where it's working well now is like the program's set up to really encourage that and allow that to blossom. And so that's why we're seeing, I think, so much progress.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, 8.2 Superintendent Report.
Okay, so we'll do a quick whip through here. We do have some highlights that will be here, but I think they're also on our agenda for next week. Are they, or are they?
No,
They're not. Okay.
I think Gary's highlights are next week. Oh, they are next week.
Yeah, we have them on there. It's just graduation highlights, and
It's duplicative. Yes, sorry.
Bruce won't be available to share those, but they'll be there, and we can celebrate some students at that point as well. Moving on, thank you all for, I think just about everybody in this room was at a graduation promotion event that we had last week. So we had our TLC graduation celebration, our alternative education promotion and graduation, the FBMS 8th grade promotion, and the Fort Bragg High School class of 2025 graduation. So they were all super lovely events in their own rights, and I really had a great time being at all of them. I'm not lying when I say it's my favorite thing in the world to do when we get to confer those diplomas. That's what we do. So has me leaving feeling pride and just and really proud of my staff who do a great job in supporting that. So. For summer school, we have 198 students who are, or actually 200 and, do some quick math, 229, who are participating in the program this year. It has just started yesterday, so we're moving through. I think it's fairly smooth. I haven't heard any issues come to my office. This year we're hosting at Redwood. Because Dana Gray needed a chance to actually get some summer work done, because for the last, I think, 5 years it's been held there, and so that has a big impact on the site when we can't get in and do some of the deep cleaning and some of those pieces as much as we'd like, as well as we're starting our construction at Dana Gray, so for the SDC classroom that should hopefully be completed through the summer as well. We also have attached to the agenda, there are detailed reports. I cannot do them justice in a slide, but I'll give you some background here. The Anti-Bias Committee has been meeting since October. We've had input from community members, from staff, from students, just to get a perspective on maybe what are some of the areas in our district that we could improve our equitable practices to support all of our learners. And so within that committee, we had some subcommittees that met, and they only met for 2 meetings. So you're talking about a total of maybe 3 hours to complete those reports. So I think they're pretty impressive for the amount of time that they had to work with them. The subcommittees were in the area of achievement, attendance, and then school climate. So they had some input, some wonderings, some pieces that'll help guide what we're doing. But the really nice part is that some of those suggestions were already included in the LCAP even before they were made, but it was kind of reaffirming to know that we're kind of in the right direction. But it also, other pieces helped to inform our LCAP process this year, so it was just a deeper dive into what some of those barriers that some of our students might be facing. And it's also nice to get some of that data, I think, out into the community, because I know my leaders know this data, they get to see it every day, but that doesn't always filter out in a way that that folks can digest and take out to the community. So I think a lot of these members could go out and they could say, you know, did you know this student group needs a little more attention for this reason, so they know when we're putting resources that way, there's the rationale that we have behind it. So I think there are some suggestions that are certainly aspirational as you look through the reports, and those will take a little longer to address. And I think as our systems start to migrate and really become more equitable systems, some of those things will just be caught up in that work as we're moving forward. So I think as you read across those different reports, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or if any of our members of the public have questions or would like to discuss those further, please feel free to reach out to my office. And next we have our school data report from Redwood Elementary. There are our traditional slides in here. Again, I won't go into too much detail here, but they are worth taking a look and seeing. Redwood, if you'll remember, we kind of have them do some of their assessments a little bit later, just simply because they don't have to do that's many years ago at this point. They do not have to do the CAS testing, so they tend to push their last benchmarks back a little bit because it just fits better within the schedule. So take a little dive into how our students are doing at Redwood. Lindy, is there anything that you wanted to share along that way? So, but thank you for getting that information together and presenting that as well. And then finally, just some general updates about different things. The construction for our middle school SDC room will be completed soon. It was delayed only because we were waiting for the casework. I guess the original color we ordered was 12 weeks out or something like that. And we said, we'll change the color. It's okay. It doesn't match anything else in the school, so let's just get it done. So I think that's in. So they're doing some of the final punch work on that this week. Our family liaisons will have an office at Redwood for the coming school year, so they'll maintain their office here and then have that office at Redwood. It's in the space that the office was temporarily in this year while we were doing construction, so it's accessible to parents as they come onto campus. And we'll have, I think, two or three liaisons over there, and then the remainder here, along with our attendance liaison, will be in these blue offices over here as well. So we will have a little bit more, I think, opportunity to connect with parents that way when we're not located all in one space.
Have we hired that position yet, the attendance liaison?
We have. It was an internal hire,
Oh, great.
so we had an internal applicant who was interested and has been placed, so I think they'll do an amazing job. And actually, that's our Martha is at a family engagement conference right now, and part of those strands were around attendance and those pieces as well. So she's picking up pieces that she can. Also, I have to brag that Martha was recognized today as the North Star Region Community Schools Coordinator of the Year. So that's for pretty much, I guess, Alameda County North on the coast. So that's that region. So she at that conference, and so I got some pictures, but I didn't have time to get them into our presentation here today. But we're super proud of the work that she's done to really get that program moving forward, and can't wait to see where it goes over the next 4 years that we continue there.
Please share our congratulations.
I will. So we also had the federal program monitoring that came the last week of school. We have shared with CDE that that's quite possibly the worst timing that could ever exist, as it's, it impacts our business office to a large extent in a time where they're trying to build a budget. It also, there are site visits involved, so you can imagine making site visits the week of promotions and graduations, and just the timing was not great. However, the reviewer we had was very lovely. She was a former principal, so she understood completely that the timing was terrible, and was very understanding about those pieces. There were a couple of minor findings that were should be able to address fairly quickly and move forward. And we are working with Flockworks to get just some additional documentation that was requested that way. And then we have one clarification point that I will bring a policy to you at some point to adopt, that just is around student workers when they are high school students and working for a program within the district, the requirements for TB testing and fingerprinting, whether we waive those or keep those in place. Because as a student, they do have a right to be on campus regardless of those statuses. So I will bring you a sample policy once I get that. That is something that was promised to me by the reviewer, so I will reach out to her to remind her that she was going to share that with me. We also found out that we have been selected for federal program monitoring for the 25-26 school year and other programs, because, when it's a good thing, I guess they just can't get enough of coming out to see us here in Fort Bragg. I am not concerned about this other than the impact that it will have on our business office, as it's a lot of documentation that goes into this moving forward. We have many of those practices in place. Again, I'm not worried about it. Our policies are up to date. All those pieces. It's just a lot of documentation. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of pages that have to be uploaded for these reviews. So I have reached out to the state to say, we just finished this process for our expanded learning. Is it possible that we could be moved into a later date? I don't expect that they're going to agree to that, but I had to try anyway. Because it's really hard to get that. I thought it was honestly the report from last week, and it wasn't. It was a new identification. So the wisdom of the CDE. Tomorrow I'll be attending a meeting at MCOE about state support for facilities, and so we have been selected and qualify for the technical assistance provision for the facilities bond that was on the election. And so we will have someone who can help us walk through that. My hope is that we can recapture dollars that we've already put into projects that we had existing, and that may help us to really take care of any additional needs that we may have at Alted that come up as a result of things. Because we actually eliminated a whole building that was there. If we're really good and can really get some money back in, because it can only be refunded back to the fund that we spent the money from. So it would go back into bond dollars, and we would have to spend it on the things that we approved the bond for. Well, we've been really good at achieving all of those goals. So Alted is sort of the last place that we would have. So we might be able to do some expanded pieces there that are not currently planned, but that's for future consideration at this point. I'm just happy that we'll get the technical assistance with it, because of all the paperwork, it's a lot to do. So I'm hoping to find out some really good news and get us some additional dollars that we were kind of promised when we started building the preschool that never materialized and has continued beyond that. And that's my report.
So is this like years down the road, or?
I think, honestly, it might take us a solid year to probably move through the process, but I think it's just taken them all this time to figure out what that process is. So they're finally able to reach out to us and say, we think we've got a process, here's how we're gonna start it. So
I don't know if we're gonna be done with all ed, and then they'll come back and be like, yeah, here's all this extra money.
possibly, I don't know.
And I thought on the bond was some aging portables. I mean, we still have some aging portables up at the high school that I walk by every year. You know.
Yeah, so when we finish
So
all,
they're like big money to get rid of them, which is terrible. So we
Yeah.
but they are,
well, and it's not just at the high school that we have aging portables, we have them at the middle school, we have them at Dana Gray, and we have even a couple at Redwood. So really, all of our sites have them. So it could help with that as well, just some demo and making those spaces into actual learning spaces for kids, even if they're outdoor or whatever, like
right.
there could be some really good things that come from that, so we can, and make our campuses just look better. We put all this time and effort into it, and that we still have some buildings hanging out there that are less than.
I feel like some of them are pretty dangerous. Like
Yeah.
if someone steps on the ramp.
Well, and the irony that it's our maintenance portables that are probably in the worst condition. So,
Yeah. But good news.
yes.
So moving on to item 9, approval of the agenda consent items. Is there anything anyone has questions about or wants to pull? I'll read the items, I guess, first. Kathy's not here. We have item 9.1, warrant register for May 2025. Item 9.2, 5/21/25 special board meeting and 5/8/25 regular board meeting. Personnel reports, 2 of them, and some contracts. 7 contracts.
I just noticed on the minutes, and I'm sure it's the program, but it shows that I made the motion, but then I didn't vote for it. So vote not recorded, and same with stage. So that's on the special. And then I was gone on the 28th, or no, I'm sorry, May 8th, not the 28th. And I don't know if it populates, it just says that I didn't vote, I think. Let's see, what does it say? But it should, I mean, shouldn't it say that I was absent? I don't know. Just housekeeping.
It should.
But I know how helpful these programs are that populate themselves. I live in the dream right now. Anyway, but otherwise, I move to approve the consent items with those revisions.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
I just had one question. I don't want to pull anything, but a quick question about the you know what? Scratch that. Nope, scratch it. Okay?
Okay.
All those in favor? Sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Consent calendar is passed. Item 10.1, public hearing. Thank you. We have 2 public hearings this evening. Okay, I'll just read the Statement here, the Local Control and Accountability Plan, or LCAP, shall be used to provide details regarding local educational agencies' actions and expenditures to support pupil outcomes and overall performance pursuant to Education Code sections 52060, 52066, 47605, 47605.5, and 47606.5. For school districts pursuant to Education Code 52060, the LCAP must describe for the school district and each school within the district goals and specific actions to achieve those goals for all pupils and each subgroup of pupils identified in Education Code 52052, including pupils with disabilities for each of the state priorities and any locally identified priorities. Data reference in the LCAP must be consistent with the school accountability report card where appropriate. The LCAP is intended to be a comprehensive planning tool. LEAs may reference and describe expenditures and other plans and actions funded by a variety of other fund sources when detailing goals, actions, and expenditures related to the state and local priorities. LCAPs must be consistent with school plans submitted pursuant to Education Code 64001. The purpose of this hearing is to review the plan that is being prepared for adoption and to allow the public to ask clarifying questions. The plan will be presented to the board for approval on June 17th, 2025. And so with that, at 6:46 p.m., we'll open the public hearing regarding the LCAP.
Okay. So I am going to start reading the 100-page document to you now. No, it is attached. However, we also thought it was a good idea to create a summary. So we have a summary that is in both English and Spanish that is attached to our document, or to our item on the agenda. So this summary provides a nice overview, goals with some key actions identified, and highlighting some progress throughout. So I think that's probably the best place for our public to go. It was really written with the idea of the general public consuming that information, as opposed to, it doesn't have a lot of acronyms or any of that kind of thing in it. We tried to make sure that it was very accessible that way. In addition to these items on this item, we have attachments for the federal addendum to the LCAP, and so this is, especially knowing that we have federal program monitoring coming up, this is one of the items that they will ask for. You don't have to update it every year, but I generally bring it back just to make those incremental updates, and so it's a good thing that we're doing that this year. We also have the budget overview for parents, so that's just a required document that has to accompany the LCAP. There's also the local indicator self-reflection, so this is just the self-reflection tool that we use to fill out the local indicators for the dashboard. And I think that's everything. So with that, there aren't any major changes. This is our incremental update this year, year 2 of a 3-year plan that we'll be going into next year. So just some additional clarifications that have been added, some pieces that are added just to support the different requirements. And we also had to add some action items for the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant that had to be reflected in the LCAP as opposed to being its own plan as it has for the last couple of years that we've had that. So beyond that, there aren't any major changes to it.
And just to recap the process for developing this, you had a series of meetings and...
Oh gosh, yes. If I won't do it justice, but if you look at our community engagement piece, we met with parents, students, community groups. Gosh, there's a lot of engagement that goes into this. It's a probably 3-month process to gather most of that input. We've had board input, we've had administrative input, surveys. Gosh, we had 800 plus responses on surveys. So we gather a lot of input, and honestly, that our process has been at least regionally held up as an exemplar of how that process should run. So we have that input. We look at what resources are available, and unfortunately, we don't have the resources to address every bit of input that we receive. We would love to be able to do everything, but we know that's not the way it works in public funding. So we really look at the items that we think will have the maximum input, or impact rather, and allocate the resources that way so that we can continue some of the amazing programs that we have going. And we also had to make some budget decisions this year, so there are some things that changed within the LCAP as a result of some of those choices. Most notably, the teachers on special assignment for the elementary schools was probably the biggest item that changed there. So we were hoping that maybe we would see some increase in funding, and that doesn't look likely at this point. So we're going to be pretty flat funded with a probably decrease in enrollment. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next public hearing that will be coming up, but just sort of giving you an idea of the input that we're getting. I don't know that we're going to be able to expand any programs in the near future outside of the community schools program that we're looking at.
So I just wanted to ask, before we open up to public comment, as far as the LCAP second year of a 3-year program, we have 2 new principals coming in at the elementary level. I assume there'll be some work this summer to get them brought up to speed on, because you're coming in.
Absolutely, yes. So I'll be meeting with them both individually and probably together, just because it's the K-5 band and it just makes sense to, things kind of sit in their sphere. So we'll do some planning together to really make sure that they're up to speed on kind of where we've been, but also get part of their vision and enable their leadership for moving these ideas forward as well.
While change is always hard, it could be an opportunity.
It absolutely can be.
as well,
And
so.
I'm hoping they're both coming from out of the district, and so may bring some perspectives of how things are done in other places that might benefit our students in our community.
Okay, any other board comments before we open up to the public? No? Is there any public comment for this public hearing?
There's no public comment.
Okay. With that being said, I will close the public hearing at 6:52 p.m. And again, this will be brought forth at our next meeting on Tuesday, June 17th for possible adoption by the board. Okay, item 10.2 is a public hearing for the 2025-26 preliminary budget. The purpose of this hearing is to review the budget that has been prepared for adoption for the June 17th, 2025 meeting. This public hearing is the opportunity for the public to ask questions, seek clarification, and also for the board as well. So with that, I will open the public hearing at 6:52 p.m.
All right, well, I'm also going to read a 150-page document. I'm kidding. We're going to go over some highlights. Thank you, Renee. All right, so tonight's agenda, we'll take a look at our trustee roadmap. If you want to, next slide, Renee. We'll go over some federal and state updates, and then we'll get into where the district's at for the 25-26 budget year, and then get into a little bit of the multi-year projections. Right. So we're almost to the end of this roadmap, but good news, it'll start all over again next year. So here we are on the 12th, and we're going to do the overview of the budget and do the public hearing, and with the hopes that come next week that we get to have an adopted budget. All right. We don't really usually do a federal update, but given the state of the federal update for the federal budget this year, I thought it was important to just bring out a couple of highlights that are happening and what's the impact to our district budget. The president is proposing some cuts within his proposed budget, and with that, what that looks like for our district, the funding sources that have a direct impact are Title III and our Migrant Ed. They're not huge grants, but it is something to just keep in mind. And then there is what he is considering is combining 18 different grants into one grant, and then doing kind of like a his proposal is to do one formula-driven grant with that funding. So the grants that we get that kind of fall into this melting pot grant is our Title II funding and then our Title IV funding. So we don't know yet what that looks like. We'll probably still see money for that. We just don't know what that allocation might look like. Our biggest pots of money that we get for federal funding are Title I and IDEA. As of right now, that remains the same because it is formula driven and it is written into law, so a lot of things have to happen for that funding to be changed. So right now, in our budget, we have those ones still built within our budget. Okay. And then for our state update, not a lot changed in the governor's May revise that got proposed in the January budget. The main things that we're looking at is there's a categorical in there for a discretionary block grant. It's a pretty good size pot of money that would be helpful for our district. And the things that others are advocating for it is because it is 100% discretionary. So for our district, I think it was around $400,000 to $500,000 that we would potentially be getting. It's not built within the 25-26 budget at this time because there's still negotiations that are happening between the governor and the legislature. And one of the things that's kind of important to note, so on June 9th, the legislature and the assembly reached a deal, but they still have to negotiate with the governor. But what's important to note in that is they reduced that discretionary block grant from $1.7 billion down to $500 million. So that's kind of why we don't build those things into the budget when the governor is proposing those, because a lot can still happen. And chances are is it will be probably somewhere in between there where it falls through. So when our Alyssa comes back for the first interim, she will be able to let you know where our district landed with all of those pots of money. Okay. So now we get into the fun stuff and our budget. So as Joe had mentioned, for our average daily attendance, right now, our enrollment is looking to be a little bit less than the 24-25. Now numbers are still coming in, so this is a snapshot in time. And when the last time I looked at it, they are slightly lower. So my hopes for the district is that this, what I'm showing you here, is worst case scenario, and that as we move along and as we're able to present at first interim, we'll be able to see that these numbers actually come in a little bit higher. The one thing that I do want to note, and I kind of wrote it into my narrative too in the budget presentation, school districts don't have a lot of opportunity to increase funding, right? We're a public agency and we don't do anything for profit. But one of our areas that we get the bulk of our funding from is through our ADA. So that's the Prop 98 that Trustee Paoli had mentioned. So that's how these dollars are generated. And for our district, you can see that if you look at that top, it's like burnt orange, brownish line. So that's our enrollments. And then down in the light orange line is where we're funded for ADA. So we don't do terrible at our district. It's about 92 to 93%, but there is some opportunity for us as a district and a community to help increase, if we can get kids to school, not only are we benefiting students, but then we're also able to get more dollars to help support those students. Can move on to the next slide. I know I do have an update for everyone about our health insurance. Last month we kind of talked about it. Well, we've been talking about it for the last few months. And the last time we had met is the Staywell Insurance Group hadn't yet finalized rates because of the huge impact that it was going to have for all of the districts involved in the JPA. So at the May meeting, we were able to come to a rate that was approved. It was somewhere in the middle of where the advisors had said that the JPA should be for our rates, and where districts felt a little bit more comfortable in being able to increase. So we landed at 16.15 for our 25-26 rates. Now, these numbers here are based on the amount of employees that we had enrolled in our health insurance for 24-25. So with that in mind, the impact is about $1 million to our budget. But depending on how many employees accept the insurance, you know, we have our employees that have mandatory benefits, but then we have some employees that have the choice of accepting the benefits. So that number might fluctuate a little bit depending on who actually enrolls into the health insurance. But we're looking at about $1 million of that impact. And again, because those rates came to us so late in the year, it was really hard for the district to be able to do anything other than absorb those costs, because rates just got approved at the end of May.
Why do you think they waited so long? Because we were going without any increases for a couple of years.
Well, there was some changes within the consultants, and not the organization itself, but the change of, there was a consultant that retired out. So they brought in new ones and they did their analysis, and then they brought in an actuary to kind of refresh the JPA. And when that report was done, it was kind of late into the year. Now, myself especially, has expressed how hard that was for the district getting the information so late. So these consultants have promised that they will start the conversation in October, so that hopefully this, you know, the goal is that these conversations can happen not as the budget is being built. All right. And then here's a snapshot of our local control funding formula. So our monies that the ADA generates. This is our snapshot of our dollars that we expect to receive from that funding formula. It takes into account to the governor's proposed COLA for 2.3%. It also takes into account our projected enrollment in ADA. Now, one thing that I did want to mention, so we do show, because we have a declining enrollment projected, that also brings down a declining ADA. However, because of how the funding formula works, so you are funded based on the highest of either your current year ADA, your prior year ADA, or a rolling 3-year average. So because our ADA was, of those 3 choices, the highest choice for 25-26 for Fort Bragg is the prior year ADA. So we're pretty much going to receive same funding level as we did in 24-25. It's not a huge increase, but there is a little bit of dollars. The only thing to keep in mind is if ADA does continue to decline, you know, that funding will go down. So we have a little bit of time to strategize and adjust. But for this year, you know, it's pretty much the same level as 24-25. Okay. And then next slide. So this is an overview of where we're at with our grant funding. When I was looking at this, the one thing I wanted to point out is we are in the 25-26 coming to the close of quite a few of our one-time grants that we have received. So when we go to look at the multi-year projection, We are gonna talk about the district's deficit spending a little bit, but part of it is intentional, and it's because of these grants. Because we've already received the funding, and now we're spending it. So, and we need to, because those dollars won't be there after this next school year. All right, next slide. And then this gives us our overview of everything that's happening in the 25-26 budget, with our total revenue and expenditures, and then where we're landing with the district reserves for the, projected for 25-26. It is a little bit lower if you compared it to the second interim report, and we will talk about why that is. It largely has to do with the health insurance raise, right? That $1 million has to come from somewhere. With that being said, we still are in a pretty good spot as far as where we need to be with our reserves. So any strategizing that potentially needs to take place, the district will have time to be able to have those conversations and plan accordingly as the next couple of years roll out. All right. And I know I say this every time, but I think it's very, very important that, budgets are a dynamic and living document. They change on a daily basis, and we have to take a snapshot in order to be able to move forward, because it's quite extensive to actually put everything together. So we use the best information that we can at the time that we are preparing everything. But no, if you come back at the first interim and go, well, wait a minute, that's not what Jamie said a couple months ago. It's because things have already changed even from the time that I've put these reports together. We already know of a couple positions that have maybe not needed to be filled. There's a couple of updates in special education. We were able to hire a psychologist instead of having to contract out for it. And that, helps save a little bit of money, because when we have to contract out stuff, it's usually more expensive. So there is gonna be hopefully some salary savings, and then hopefully, when the first interim comes back, you'll actually see some a little bit higher projections for revenue in some areas. So I just wanna kind of throw this out there to everybody that, the data is only as good as it is within that time period. Right. With that being said, so we'll get into our multi-year projection then. With knowing what we know today about our budget and the numbers that we have today, so I did talk about how we're deficit spending, and that how some of it is intentional, but we have unintentional deficit spending too. And again, largely that is to do with the health insurance. And then a little bit of it is because of declining ADA. And then, the good thing is as we get longevity in staff and they stay, we get more experience and better knowledge for our students. But then that also, takes a hit on the budget too, as they progress on the salary schedules. So it's not huge, but it's just something that's impacting the budget, right? So as staff move up on the salary schedule, it has an impact. And then there's costs that we also can't control on the employer benefits with like retirement and our statutory things that we have to contribute for on top of our wages that we have. And then there's also overhead costs that we don't have control over, PG&E, the costs for heating, fuel. Those costs rise every year, and those are things that we don't really have control over. We have to have those things in order to be able to do business. So all of those things are impacting the budget, putting it kind of in a deficit spending. So my recommendation is for the district look at in the next couple of years to find some reductions in your out years. So in 26, 27, It's looking about 1.2 million. And if you take into account the health insurance, right, like I already mentioned, it's $1 million hit, right? So we already know where largely that is coming from. And those other categories is making up that other smaller portion. So the other thing about multi-year projections is the further out you get in a year, it's harder to predict, right? Because everything changes quickly within a year. So right now, it's looking like, in the third year out, you would still need to reduce the budget a little bit. That number could change a little bit, as the year goes along. But at this moment in time, this is what it's looking like that the district would need to reduce the unrestricted budget by. So that's a summary of all of the budget. The things that are kind of coming up in the future, the state will finalize their budget here in the next few days. And depending on if they come to a complete agreement, they have to adopt their budget by the 15th. So sometimes they can 100% agree and move on with life, and we'll know what that looks like in July. Sometimes they kind of come to an agreement, and then they still kind of negotiate trailer bill language that can come out after July. So in the next couple weeks, we'll get some more information from the state as they finalize things. And then we'll be able to incorporate those changes into the next reporting period of the budget. And then for 24-25, we'll start wrapping up our budget for the 24-25 school year, which will also have an impact for 25-26, because then we'll get to finalize some of those numbers and then see there'll probably be an increase in carryover as we finalize this current year's expenditures. And then that will be presented at the unaudited actuals in September. And then, of course, in December is when the 24-25 audit will be presented, and then the first interim update. Have any questions?
There's not a whole lot of wiggle room. I mean, I don't know how we can get ahead of these items. I feel kind of sad because we've seemed like we've been plugging along and having, we've had surplus, but I think we've been, using those one-time dollars and some of the, still COVID dollars, and so it was bound to happen. So the budget, I know it reflects open and, any positions that are open. I mean, that's all reflective in there, and that could change in one day.
Right, correct. Yeah, so we have, vacant positions, so those are built within the budget. And we, you don't know exactly where your hiring is gonna land, right? So we do build in a little bit of buffer in case, depending on the experience that's coming into the district, right? So as we're filling those positions, sorry, or as they're not being filled, then some of those salaries will also start to, either move into services or fall down to the bottom of the budget. And I will say that, the district has done a really, really good job. And our district is also not alone in these situations. Almost across the state, these types of conversations are having. And I've seen districts that have had to cut, $3 to $4 million out of their budget, and drastically and quickly. So I know it's not great news. However, the district is in a position to be able to, adjust accordingly and strategize in making those adjustments.
And I noticed, I think in one of your slides, I think the lowest it got was it 5 million in cash? Was it 5 or 13?
Yeah, it was.
So I just don't know if that's like a normal kind of a dip, or it just,
Yeah,
why
that's
about
the
as low
the
as
cash
you could
flow.
see it. So that seems
Yeah.
average. So
Yeah, that's pretty
and
normal.
I'm just trying to look at all those areas.
Yeah.
That's alarming. What's going on?
No, it's good. Our district does have a healthy cash flow. You would, some districts, depending on what they're receiving for like property taxes and that kind of stuff, you'd be surprised that their cash flow can even sometimes go into the negative during the year. So our district actually has a really good and healthy cash flow.
So how is this affecting our reserves for the next year?
Our reserves, so we're at about 19%. Now that does take into account the board special reserve that we have set aside, right, that 9%, and then our 3% state minimum requirement, and then we have some ending fund balances that are designated. So all of that is taken into account, and we have about 19% for the school year.
And that'll be at the end of 25, 20, that's what's projected for the end of 25, 26,
Right, like if all of those expenditures come to fruition.
after the $1 million
Mm-hmm.
for health.
Yeah.
I know that in the main budget, you know, there's a lot of pages. I don't know if I'm looking at the right page when
Mhm.
I ask these questions. But I know future, you know, when I first started on the board and I was like, why are we doing 3 years out? And it doesn't make any sense because everything changes all the time. And so I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but your projections for like health, maybe I'm not looking at the right number, like employee benefits for 26, 27, you only have a 0.4% increase, then a 0.5% increase the next year. Like, is that?
It's because when you reduce the salaries, it automatically calculates the reduction in the benefits portion.
Okay.
So that's why, I know those forms are a little bit complicated because the system itself is actually making those computations.
Got it.
So, and it's directly tied to the salaries. So when we make a reduction in the salaries, it's making a reduction in all of the benefits portion. So that's why it's not in those out years, it's not showing significant increases because we're actually saying that we're planning on making reductions.
We are. That's,
Mhm.
okay. So
Yeah.
the negative percentages in salaries, that's
Mm-hmm,
projected.
yeah.
Is there anything about that? Or?
That's just the reductions that she was talking about, the 1.2
Yeah.
million that we would have largely be a part of our salaries at that point.
Mm-hmm,
And then benefits being not just health benefits, but all the
Right,
driven,
yes.
the retirement and
yeah,
all those pieces that come with that. So,
yeah,
And
because
how is PERS and STIRS unfunded like how are we doing with unfunded liabilities and all that? Are we?
the rates, so actually for the 25, 26, the PERS rates went down very, very slightly.
I think it's still
But they
down.
did go down very slightly, and when we receive projections for those, they have, I mean, they're still ridiculously high, but they've kind of leveled out a little bit as far as those increases. So they're either just slightly increased or pretty flat. And then STIRS rates, right now, they're projecting to stay flat. And they actually have rules in place that they can only increase so much at a time. I mean, they can each year, but right now, they're not projecting any increases.
Is our percentage towards those two, is most of it unfunded liability or is it most of it all cost, you know? Like I know some public agencies have done a really good job over the years of,
It
Mhm.
seems like it's different. I mean, for like the city, it's confusing. It's almost like they're not contributing enough, but the school always seems like this is what you're contributing. Like it's
Mhm.
not like a choice. So
Yeah,
it must
pretty
be
much.
funded differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, schools do get funded a little bit differently, but I could get a more solid
I
answer
mean, I'm
for
just
you.
kind of curious how much our unfunded liabilities are hurting us. Not that we
Mhm.
can do anything about it, I'm just curious.
We're looking at the wrong rock.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and that's kind of why those rates, especially on the per sites, do fluctuate, right? Because depending on, you know, retirement and people coming in and going out, that's what kind of can
Right.
fluctuate those rates. And that was kind of the goal when they implemented the PEPRA, you know, was to help kind of calm those rates down because they knew that with it the way that it was, it wasn't sustainable.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Is there any public comment?
No, there's no public
No
comment.
public comment. Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing at 7:19 PM. And again, this will be brought forth at the meeting next Tuesday on the 17th for possible adoption. Okay, moving on to 11.1, Resolution 25-13, budget transfers.
So the next three items, 11, 1, 2, and 3, are generally items for resolutions that we bring forward each year to give our business office the authority to make the transfers and the different things that are necessary to close out the books for the year. You know, these are all things that stay within the budget that we've established, but sometimes, you know, an item might have moved from one place to another or that sort of thing throughout the year. Or something comes in a little higher in one category and lower in another category that just, they're fairly minor changes. These aren't things that would typically require additional board approval, and that's why we ask for that authority.
And we've never had the auditor say, oh, well, you know, there was some sort of inappropriate transfer, so these have,
No,
we've
these,
been approving these and we've never had any,
never any
findings to
issue.
say
And
that
Mhm.
someone's not, you know, following the
No.
protocols.
And it's
Mhm.
very typical in every district to have
Mhm.
these. Some larger districts do these at the interims as they move through. It's not necessary in our district our size, because the budget, you know, if you're talking $1 billion budget, then that's a whole different conversation. Sometimes you're talking moving millions of dollars, but that's not the case here for us. So,
So I move to approve resolution number 2513, authorization for 24-25 budget transfers.
Is there any public comment before I ask for a second?
There's
Okay, second?
I'll second it.
All right. Roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
yes.
Trustee Staley?
Aye.
And Trustee Austin?
Yes.
Motion
Okay, item 11.2, resolution 25-14, interfund transfers. Superintendent Aldridge already gave his explanation. I just want to ask, after all these are done, a list is available of these if one was so
Mhm.
inclined.
yes.
Mhm.
Because I know it'd be kind of weird approving something that we can't see or hasn't even happened yet, but again, like you said, it's common practice, so if anyone did want to see what these transfers were, at some point they could.
Yep, we keep the documentation in perpetuity, really.
Mhm.
It just stays on the servers for,
So if anyone's feeling nervous, they're always available.
Yep.
Is there any other comments on this? Any public comment?
There's no.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve resolution 25-14 interfund transfers.
Second,
I second.
roll call, please, when you're ready.
Trustee Austin?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Aye.
And Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Motion
Okay, 11.3, resolution 25-15, interfund temporary cash transfers. I'll just ask if there's any public comment.
No.
Okay, entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve resolution 25-15 interfund temporary cash transfers.
Second,
I'll second.
all right, roll call, please.
Trustee Stevens?
Aye.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Austin?
Yes.
And Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Okay, item 11.4, school plan for student achievement, 25-26 for Redwood Elementary School.
and so while we did not have that plan attached, we found out when we got here, we accidentally attached the safety plan instead of the SPSA. However, while we have your brilliance here, we will avail ourselves of your knowledge of the plan, and then it may not be approved until the 17th, but we will get it approved, so,
Presentation will be today.
yes.
Cover sheet.
Yes, we do have a cover sheet.
We do have your cover sheet, yes.
Okay.
Just the wrong actual plan got attached, so.
Put that on the side.
No major changes were made to the plan. We're moving forward with the district goals of college and career readiness, student achievement, and school culture. Some minor changes, if you could scroll down a little bit, Renee.
I can.
Thank you so much. We did reduce the number of college and career days that we held formally at Redwood this year. That seems appropriately aligned with what we're doing with the youngsters. Just opening their eyes to the opportunities about college and career. And we found that the participation with students and the bandwidth of our counselor was greater by reducing those. So I think that was a good success. The plan was approved by all of our stakeholder groups, and I'm here if you have any questions about it.
I always, well, with all the equity work we did these last few years, have you incorporated anything that you could say, like maybe the push push out bulletin. I don't know how that's working for your side, or attendance, or what surveys, what do you think? Because it seems like, I'm always surprised at the district level that we're still in declining ADA, but I felt like all the plans were kind of saying it was up, but I guess it's not up enough. I don't know. I just I was a little bit surprised at the budget level that I felt like we were not still in like full declining, but so I don't know if you had any
Student
input.
enrollment,
Just attendance.
student attendance.
If you incorporated anything with the equity.
We continue to target that. I have noticed over the course of the last year that that's why I was clarifying, that our attendance by parents has decreased at some of our meetings. There were a couple times this year where we maybe had one parent at our ELAC meeting, and another one we didn't have any parents. But student attendance is still definitely an area for improvement. We continue to have fun events at school and communicate regularly with families. It's a little tricky with our TK and kindergarten students because the ways that we can encourage attendance are the same across the board, but with those groups, our accountability piece with families is more challenging. I had many conversations with families throughout the course of the year, and they know that their child is not required to be in school. So that's been something that's consistently
Yes, I wonder if the surveys
tricky.
are giving so much information, they don't want to come and see you and ask questions because you're pushing out so much good stuff.
I really appreciated having
The resource.
the resource of having, somebody who could look at my calendar. I could meet with her for 5 minutes on a Monday morning, and she could,
So it was a real person, so I had no idea how it worked.
It was a real
So I
lovely
thought it was-
person.
It was like, it kind of like AI'd what your calendar was and just spit out some stuff.
No,
Okay.
I found it to be really helpful. And one of the things that I did in the Redwood Bulletin was I asked her to highlight, I gave her, here are these topics: healthy nutrition, appropriate bedtimes, screen time, things like that, and asked her to craft something that might grab people's attention.
And I thought that each site, I don't have kids, and so I thought that it was totally appropriate for each population, so that's so cool that it actually helped. Hopefully get the word out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you for your service to the kids and the community and the staff and
Absolutely.
us, and you're going to be missed
Thank you.
a
It's
lot.
been an honor and a pleasure.
I'm sure it's been very hard and frustrating at times, but just thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to table this for the 17th, 11.4.
Yes, we'll get the,
Perfect. So
Correct.
11.5, school plan for student achievement, Fort Bragg Middle School. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, it's been riveting. I love hearing about budgets. So, and LCAPs. Our plan pretty much, I'm assuming the plan is attached and it's, okay,
Yes.
great.
everything's right.
So our site goals remain the same. They're the same as the districts. The highlights, I even put little like splashy things on my paper. We are going to have Spanish next year, which we haven't had in a few years. So I am delighted because for our 8th graders, Spanish will transfer to the high school and then counts toward their A to G. So we're excited to be able to add that back in. And then I just want to highlight our career symposium. This was the first year that we did it at the middle school. It was an amazing day. The feedback we had was so positive. And then also for increasing student readiness for a career in college is our 8th graders go to HSU Cal Poly, Humboldt State. I struggle with calling it Cal Poly still. I'm like, oh, San Luis Obispo. No, Humboldt. And that is, it just opens up so many avenues for our kids to actually go to the campus and be able to see a working campus, because not all of our kids have that opportunity. And then on goal two for increasing student achievement, the one thing I would note in the highlights is we've always focused on claim, evidence, and reasoning, but this year we did reasoning / justification because we learned on the LPAC that they don't say explain your thinking or use your reasoning. They use the word justification. So we have embraced that. And then on improving school culture, nothing in there is new. The only thing I would add is our homeroom 4 times a week. It was 15 minutes this year. We're hoping to do a 20-minute homeroom for next school year. Questions?
Do you ever take 8th graders or really any grade out to businesses to tour and see what they're about? And
Our workability program does, which is through students with IEPs. That's a program that's run through the county. So they just went in May to several different businesses in our community.
Great. I
And
only
then-
ask because Three Rivers just did a walking tour around town and stopped at, Harvest, and they stopped at my place and stopped at several different, type of businesses just to see the backward, how they function. I think
And
the
we
kids
could
will-
certainly entertain that. However, I think the challenge with the middle school is that that's 120
a lot,
kids
yes, oh, yeah.
walking around town
Yes.
and going into different
Yeah, I
businesses.
think
So
they had about
do you
30,
want
so-
120 kids
Not
at your
once,
place?
Not at once, but, I think, different classrooms throughout the year at different times.
Okay.
It's just a thought to get them.
No, I think it's a
Thinking
great
about-
idea. And our
yeah.
workability kids that do that, which is probably a group of about 30, I think, maybe even a little bit smaller, that's more manageable and less impact on our local businesses. So yeah, we can figure out other venues though, or other ways to make it happen for the general education population.
If it makes sense.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or any public comment?
There's no public comment.
Okay, so entertain a motion.
I move to approve the school plan for student achievement for Fort Bragg Middle School.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Oxty?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Staley?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, 11.6, school plan for student achievement for Fort Bragg High School.
Welcome, everyone. Similar, as everybody said, same school goals. Some of the highlights, next year we're going to try a nursing through Pacific Union. It's been difficult with Mendo College just having the people at the college. So interesting enough, we had one of our parents who runs kind of at the hospital here, got us in touch, and so we're going to try it next year and see how that works. So it could be a good thing. So I think some of the kids, it was last minute. We just really did it we met in probably 2 weeks ago. And so that's kind of a new thing. We didn't get to advertise it because our kids already picked their classes. And we still got I think there was like 18 students in it. So that's something that we're going to try, and it could end up being
You said it was Pacific Union.
Pacific Union.
So is it
Yeah.
a class? It's a class?
It's class. It's a dual enrollment class. So
On site.
it's on site.
Wow.
So we're going to see how that works. Because, unfortunately, it's the person who's doing it is the one. It's going to be tough for them, I'm sure, because they also have to run a hospital. But they've got a lot of folks that they can support. So I think it's going to be great. One other change that we're doing is we implemented wingspans, which is a career in college through freshman seminar, and Mary Iverson loves it. So it's been we've used big get focused, stay focused forever. So we're gonna try it because it's got a lot more a little updated videos and that they add to it, and you can narrow down like with student interest, and they see videos of different careers. So so far it's been great, and we just started this semester. UB this summer is actually on Mendo College, So the classes for the summer school are at Mendo College, so that'll be a pretty neat experience for the students to actually sit at a college. So we're looking forward to see how they just started Wednesday. So, and our great student services are bringing food down there. So that's been a difficulty to try to figure out how we can pay for that. I think, Pilar worked through the state, and I think that was a lengthy process, but we got that figured out. For other goals here, some of the highlights. Next year, we're going to try to do the CASP interim assessments for our benchmarks. We got to train our folks. Many times we've tried them and we couldn't get the data back, so it really wasn't useful for the teachers since we couldn't get the data to find out what skills students were lacking. So that's going to be a goal this year to work on that, since we have to make little groups and areas. So hopefully things work out so we can get that done. So I think that'd be real beneficial. Our instructional partners, so since Kelly Smith is leaving, our group has taken over that realm with the help of MCOE. Or at least they gave us one more year that they would support us with Mr. Becker, because I think that's expanding to other, in the county. So other schools are wanting his services as well in the county services. So our group of 4 teachers have been doing a great job. They met with Kelly probably 2 months ago and implemented kind of the plan for next year. So it's up and running, and they got trained when the teachers come back in August. So we're looking forward to that. Some of the things for our campus, Mr. Anderson got a Kachi being good, kind of similar to like the Redwood, and it was a great that students were kind of excited. Anchor Academy made a nice little box, and there was 6 different prizes they could win. Our boosters kind of donated some prizes for us, so that was great to have, and it was amazing how excited the kids were going to put their tickets in there. So we announced it to the whole school who won it, and they were up there very quickly to claim their prizes. So that was a good thing. Family liaison's been very helpful this year, and it's been great. They've been calling home, so I think with their support, and I think even our families are getting more comfortable calling them. It's like, oh, can you have them call instead of the front office or something? And so I think that's been a great thing for our schools. So we are looking forward to using them more. We've had great events. We've had some, I think some of you were in attendance. They had some for our EL, our incoming students. They had a little luncheon for them. So that was great. I think the kids were very excited. So I think it's been good. So I think the more support that they, and the more they're involved with families, I think the more, changes we can do on our campus. So that's pretty much it. You got any questions? And hopefully we are fully staffed. So I think we interviewed our last person today at 2. We haven't spoken with them yet, so hopefully they do accept. That was for a Spanish position. So we called references, and everybody said pretty good, waiting for one more. But hopefully they say yes tomorrow.
At the graduations, we get to see staff, and there were a few new faces.
Yeah,
so
and there was more, as you can see, we scrambled to get seats because there was more people showed up than we thought.
I know. That was a great attendance.
So it was good.
So does staff have to, I guess it's a question for everyone, but is there mentorship or what? Since we don't have Kelly Smith, although I don't know that she was a 411 person, but I know it's hard to come in this realm if there's supports, or does your staff feel like they have that mentorship, or I don't know?
So district-wide, yes, we have mentors for teachers who are interns, working through credential clearing programs. But we also have, at the high school, they're calling them the instructional partners, or I think in the LCAP we call them the instructional coaches. It's all the same idea.
So the stipends, but I'm just wondering, is that
Yeah.
helping?
Yeah.
I think so. We've made some changes, because I think some it was difficult the way we grouped them. It was not department. So we're going to try this year as departments, because it was, there was maybe a history teacher with the math, and they're like, okay, I appreciate you supporting, And they had some great stuff that they saw in other things, but I think we're going to try to departmentalize more and see how that works. But I think, like I said, I think they appreciated seeing one another, and I think they're learning skills.
Is it like once a week, once a month, or what is the, or is this on call? I
It,
mean, what is
it,
this
well,
look like?
I think they do a co-teach a plan. They plan one, they co-teach one, and then they talk about it and debrief it. So they're meeting usually 3 to 4 times per semester.
Okay, so it's pretty limited.
So it's
You're
limited, yeah.
overwhelmed, You're not really.
Well, it's too much. I mean, that's the hard part of subs too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to get
Oh,
subs.
Right,
So they're taking it on their early release days to have those discussions, so we don't have to get subs.
right.
So but I think they appreciate getting out there and seeing one another, and I think it helps with the school culture too.
For sure. Good, exciting.
Great. Any other questions? Any public comment?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Triplett. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the school plan for student achievement 25-26 for the Fort Bragg High School.
Is there a second?
A second.
All right, roll call please, when you're ready.
Trustee Kelly? Yes. Trustee Oxton? Yes. Trustee Stan?
Aye.
Trustee Schnack?
Yes. Okay, 11.7, school plan for student achievement, 25-26 for alternative education campuses.
Hello again. So same with everybody else, the goals haven't significantly changed. There's a slight tweak on goal 1. So just as goal 1 is our reduced chronic absenteeism by 5%. We did see some gains there at the lower grades, both the middle school grades and the 9-10 saw significant improvements. The upper grades actually dropped off a little bit, but tweaking the goal a little bit to focus on overall average attendance, just because when you have that cutoff point for chronic absenteeism, you don't get to see gains below that line, right? It's like until they cross the line, they're still considered chronically absent. So we're going to be looking more at average attendance just to see where we're at. And we have, again, sort of aligned with the chronic absenteeism, we have seen improvements at the lower grades. The upper grades, the 11-12s are sort of pretty much flat, slight drop off. You know, as we dive deeper into the data, it's similar to what we talked about back in January, that it's a lot to do with students not attending the full days. They're not showing up for first period, and then they're checking out, leaving at lunch and not coming back, getting picked up for things, what have you. And so, you know, if we can address that, we can really make a significant improvement on attendance. And so that's going to be kind of one of our focuses going into the new year, is like how to kind of make those, the first hour, last hour, sufficiently valuable to the students that they're showing up for it. But we've seen some improvements. It's maybe not yet at the level of trend, but we're heading in, certainly the data for this year was mostly positive around that. For goal 1, we're also, as metrics, we're looking at things like internships and college classes. Internships stayed about the same this year, still about 40% of our students that were eligible did them, and they logged about 800 hours of internships over the year between them. The college classes, we had a dual enrollment class this year for the first time, and it went well, well enough that we're adding a second next year. So we had the CCS 100 this year. In the fall, we're going to do English 85 with the same professor, and we're also adding the work experience class, which allows the students that are in internships to also get college credit. And then in the spring, we'll bring back CCS 100 for those. So that partnership is going well.
How do they get credit for the work experience? How does that work?
So it aligns nicely with the way the internships work. It'll be the same professor again, so she'll be working with us on all 3. And essentially, she meets with the student and the employer at the beginning, which is what happens with our advisor anyway. So that will be a combined meeting. They set some goals for the semester, and then she checks in regularly to make sure that they're meeting those goals, and then it works out. It's like every 50 hours is worth 1 college credit. So, we figure, those students that are in the full 2 days a week, it ends up being a couple of credits a semester for stuff they're doing anyway. So.
And do you have a hard time finding businesses to participate? Probably not.
So they're not finding the internships for them. So it'll still be our students that'll go out there and find it. So, you know, what we find is the students that are determined find something, right? And so we continue to work with them on that. We'd obviously like to get that 40% number up because we tend to see that the students that are doing internships also tend to be more successful across the board and graduate better. Looking at just going back to attendance, I did take a look at the average attendance for our seniors that graduated versus the ones that did not successfully graduate. Those that graduated averaged 80% attendance, while at Noyo over the time they were there, the ones that did not graduate averaged 52%. So, you know, it's not causative necessarily. There's complex relationships, but there's clearly correlation between showing up and succeeding.
So the 52, are they showing up at all?
So they're showing up. So
They show up, which is good.
yeah, I mean there is a component to that where there are certain students they get to a point in 12th grade where they realize that realistically graduation is not possible, and then you see a huge drop off in attendance after that. So to go deeper, I'd need to kind of look at what the patterns were for individuals, but there's also, it's not an unexpected relationship between, if you're not at school, you're gonna have a hard time graduating. Which brings us on to goal 2, which is improve our graduation rates, 5% a year. Again, we did see a nice jump this year. The last 3 years, we've been hovering around the sort of 40 to 50%. We jumped up to 63% this year. And I think there's probably a couple of things going on there. It's like this is the first cohort that had their entire high school career post-COVID. So they were in school and doing things. This is the first group of seniors that were only big picture with us. And so one of the things we noticed was there was a huge drop in the number of students transferring into night school during 12th grade. And I think that what we were seeing for the last couple of years were there were definitely students who had experienced packet-based learning and were sort of like wanting that easy out, essentially. And so we had more students trying to drop out and go to night school. That's not happening anymore. I think as they're like, this is what we do, and they're happy, they're sticking it out to the end. So we, again, not a trend yet, right? It's the first year we've seen that big jump, but we're hoping that this is heading in the right direction. In terms of goal 3, this is our sort of school culture goal. It's focused on suspensions. We did end up with a couple of suspensions towards the end of the year, but our numbers are way, way, way down on any of the previous, 10 years. Same with referrals. It's orders of magnitude less than we've ever seen before. And so I think that reflects the culture at the school in general. I sort of saw it towards the end of this year. We had a couple of scenarios that were potentially volatile that were occurring, and it was our seniors that were going around and telling people to calm it down and we're not having this on campus. And so, it's that sort of that mentality that's set in at the school where we're here to do the right thing. We're here, I don't care what you do outside of school, but when you're here, you do it, you're here to be focused and do the right thing. So truth is our cohort size is so small that those numbers could jump, the suspension numbers they can fluctuate significantly on relatively small problems. We have a couple of kids get busted with pot, and that's going to jump right up. But, and I do think that going forward, if we see a continuation of what we're seeing this year, I'd like to revisit the goal to be a more aspirational goal rather than focusing on discipline, but start looking at things that we can be aiming for, as opposed to things that we're trying to rid ourselves of. Because I think what we are seeing is basically we're not a school that has significant behavior issues. And so, I think we can start looking at, do we need a behavior-focused goal going forward? Those kind of the highlights. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I guess the one other thing that we did talk about was credits, and this relates to graduation. We're still kind of figuring our way through that. A lot of it's to do with calibration across the staff, and one of the difficulties I think we have is that, like, the work that the students are doing is not traditional, like, assignments, right? It's not you grade the test and that's your score, and then you complete these assignments, you get this number of credits. It's a little bit more abstract in how you assign credits, and so the staff are working really hard on trying to make sure that they're evaluating, evaluating correctly and really recognizing the learning and the work that's happening at a level that's appropriate. So we're working towards that, and as that improves, I think that'll also obviously help with things like graduation rates, because if they're getting the credits that they've earned, they're more likely to be successful.
And your staffing levels are okay?
We're fully staffed going into next year. We've moved a few pieces around, but I'm really excited for the setup that we have going into next year. I think we're on track for another good year.
Seems like things are going in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm happy with where we're at.
Any questions, comments? Any public comment?
There's
No public comment. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the school plan for student achievement for 25-26 for alternative education campuses.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Stefan?
Aye.
Trustee Austin? Yes. Trustee Hill? Yes. Trustee Schneider?
Yes. There's 1 minute. Are you welcome to stay, of course.
Thank you.
Lots of great stuff still to come.
Yeah.
Right
Thank you.
after this break from our sponsors. Okay, 11 point, have a good summer. Thanks for everything.
Enjoy your,
Thank you.
no kids for a while.
11.8, school accountability report card, 2024-25, Dana Gray Elementary School.
Okay. So this was brought forward, we already had approved it. The version that we approved had some information that was inconsistent with the facilities inspection tool. And so we do not have an audit finding. We get this approved with the correct information and submit that to them, and we will clear that item with no problem.
Okay, any questions? Board? Any public comment?
No.
All right, entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the school accountability report card for Dana Gray Elementary, the revised version.
And a second.
I second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Stephen?
Aye.
Trustee Hill? Yes. Trustee Austin? Yes.
All right, 11.9, FBUSD District Instructional Continuity Plan. This is new, right?
This is new. So the legislature is requiring by July 1st, 2025, that we have an instructional continuity plan in place. However, that will not be audited until starting July 1st, 2026. Technically, this plan becomes a part of our comprehensive school safety plans. And the intent is that when there's an extended type of disruption, be it, natural disaster or that kind of thing, that we get back to instruction for students as soon as possible. As that's always our goal, the resounding pushback that we have had as administrators on this is, if our teachers don't have a place to live because of some severe thing, we are not going to get back to instruction because they're not going to be available. But sure, we'll write a plan. So that's why there's some directions in there about what things that parents could focus on in those types of situations. However, I don't know that our parents, if we're in that situation, are going to be looking for this plan and following those directions at that point. However, that snarkiness aside, it is a required plan, so we have it completed. It is not necessarily required that the board approve it, but I think that's prudent as you do approve our other safety plans. Again, this is basically checking a box that we have to check.
Which is terrible, because I thought they were like assessing, where's that report? I thought they were working on assessing all the reports that the schools, at the state level, and then we're gonna kind of consolidate or kind of.
Yeah, they asked us for a report on it.
A report on the report, so they gave you another report, so this doesn't seem very helpful or in the right
It's
direction.
not. However, this, the reason this is important is that we can, then if we had an extended outage, we could apply for exception on the Form J13A, which allows us to serve less than 180 school days because of some emergency that comes
So
up.
how many days can you do that? Because we do our
It really just depends on the emergency.
situation. This helps that, so this is not total waste. is that
No, it's not. It's required to be, to qualify for that. And I would say some of the districts in the county, particularly down on the south coast, have had an issue when they had flooding and things like that closed for, upwards of 6 or 7 days. So it was more than they could make up within the remaining school schedule. So it's pretty important, given the different variables that we could have in place, to have that flexibility. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Or any public comment?
There is no.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the district's instructional continuity plan, ICP.
And a second.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Kelly? Yes. Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Oxley? Yes. Trustee Staten?
Aye.
Okay, 11.10, request for course approval, subject online high school.
This is another requirement that has been in place for many years. However, the state has recently, after about a decade of not enforcing this, asking that we do get approval for different curricula that we're using for our adult education programs. So we have, in addition to the packets that are in place, we also have bought some licenses to the Subject Online High School. And Subject just presents, it's an online format that has some actually pretty high quality videos. They're pretty entertaining, to provide additional support to the lessons that are there and helping our students move through the curricula. So we would recommend approval of this.
Could this be used, I know we just approved the plan for continuity, could this be used for other high school if there was like a long-term something, or that's?
It could, however, we have to buy licenses for students into the program, and they're fairly expensive for something that may not be used as much. However, we also discussed using this at Alt-Ed for if we have students who want to stay on track because they offer A through G qualifying courses through Subject. So that could keep a student on track if they had a discipline issue and were placed at Alt-Ed, so that they could still earn their A through G by graduation. So it gives us some flexibility that way as well.
Any other questions? Any public comment?
There is no public.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the course approval, subject online high school.
And a second.
I second.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Kelly? Yes. Trustee Staten?
Aye.
Trustee Oxley? Yes. Trustee Schneider?
Yes. Okay, item 11:11, certificated administrator salary schedule.
Okay, so as we have discussed in previous meetings, the certificated administrative salary schedule tops out with no sort of longevity or additional steps at step 15. This salary schedule simply carries the same standard increase that we've had throughout the rest of the salary schedule forward and presents 20 steps that we would have. This is in line, is closer in line with what our other certificated salary schedules are. I think our other salary schedules go up to 25. So, but this honors the longevity that some of our administrators have had in the district, and we want to make sure to do that.
So it's consistent all the way through.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
because that, I mean, and yeah, you wouldn't want to punish someone
For the experience that they're
being
bringing
loyal,
forward,
because
yes. Yeah.
the sad reality is that it seems that people do switch careers more frequently. But it does, if it's an equal increments each stage, it just seems like it needs to happen. Yeah.
Yes.
So why is the high school principal and the LTID principal different? Is that just historical?
That's just historically how we have always categorized those different positions.
And what's a DW? I should know that.
District-wide director. So that would be, currently we only have one. It's our director of student services, is Carolyn's position. However, or director of special programs, sorry. But I guess in the past we could have had others.
So nutrition services is not?
No, that's on the classified. So this is administrative certificated.
Oh, of course, okay,
Yeah.
right. I'm sorry. Yes, yes.
Well, it's crazy because being a former city, they have 5 steps.
Yes, I know. And once you're there, you're there.
And the other thing that this district should be proud of is that our lowest is not as low paid as a fast food worker, where the city still has their entries. You
Pretty bad,
could make
yeah.
more money working at a fast food market. Yeah, it's just, so, you know, this may not be enough for staff or feel important, but there's a lot that the district's been working on to make it more sustainable and trying to honor longevity. So I would like to make a motion to approve the certificated administrator salary schedule.
Is there any public comment? Sorry.
No, there's no.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Stater?
Aye.
Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And Trustee Oxford? Yes. And motion carries.
And I would like to say publicly, the other area that we need to work on longevity is for our CSEA salary schedule. And so that, those are conversations that I will have with them moving forward, because I do want to acknowledge that's probably the one area that, as a district, we're not doing a great job of acknowledging. And I would like to just put that out publicly, because that's a goal that I would have, is to figure out how to do that. It's always a challenge in tight times, but I think if we get creative, we can figure it out.
Well, that's right. So we just approved it. Is that going to be embedded? I mean, it's not really going to change much. Now the budget's all screwed up.
Yeah, it was already included as the standard step and column, because we just take that as a whole for all of our certificated, all of our administrators.
And then bargaining unit, I did miss that last May, which I watched, but is there something that we need to approve?
That'll
that was
be
is that
on
May 8th?
Tuesday's
Okay.
agenda that we have our tentative agreements for both units, so.
So I know we saw some pieces, but how that affects the budget.
Yeah, and that's already,
embedded.
it's already embedded in the budget as well, so.
What's ratio? Sorry. The 1.22, 1.17. 100 days.
Step ratio, that's what it says.
Well, steps I think go down.
Steps go
Oh,
down,
steps,
days,
right, ratio.
days goes across how many days they work, and then
Right.
ratio, 1.22 versus 1.17.
It doesn't.
I think it's probably something that's an embedded formula of some sort that was probably just,
Okay.
Someone was using it for a,
This,
Okay.
it does something,
Okay, all right, moving on to 12.1, information discussion, CSBA Annual Education Conference and Trade Show.
no, I think it just establishes that there's a base number times 1.22 gets us to step 1, I think.
oh, okay.
Yeah, gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this, I asked this to be on there, registration just opened for the conference in December. We just wanted to start registering those board members who could attend. So I know that,
And to remind you, this will be in Sacramento, so it's a little bit closer. It's a little more economical, generally in Sacramento that time of year for the stay. So it seems like it would be probably a pretty good exchange for the amount of money.
and I
For
know I will need
professional
my
development.
ethics training if they offer it.
I'm sure they will, because it'll kind of be the last opportunity, one of the last opportunities before the end of the calendar year when it's required.
Okay.
I did the online ethics one that we sent out earlier. It was pretty easy to
Okay.
do the 2 hours.
And I know, they're not here, but we have a couple new student board members joining us, so it may be good to have a conversation about what opportunities may be there, if they, I don't know,
Yeah, we can certainly reach out to them too and see.
I don't know what the budget is, or if they want to go together, or what the logistics are, but I know there was a lot of impressive things in the last conference for student board reps. And if it's this close,
I would
it
agree.
would be, easy for them to attend a day or something, maybe not all of it, but. I guess if you can't go, let Renee know, right?
By next Tuesday would be great.
Yeah, I know, I was like, okay.
I'm gonna try and see if I can get rooms again at the reduced rate I get
Okay.
through my family.
No, there's no rush, it's just,
Yeah.
you don't wanna let it go too.
Then summer happens and we forget, and then all of a sudden early registration's over and things like that. Okay, so just mark your calendars for this if you all would. Okay, moving on to 13.1, board reports. Does anyone wanna start? Anything to report on?
I can see just attending the graduations, was very interesting to be, first year of graduation, sitting up on there, because I didn't go to school in Fort Bragg either, and I graduated Mendocino, so, I hadn't done any of the graduations on that side, so it was a different experience for sure,
Very different looking at 1,000 people from that side.
Yeah.
So I will share that, I did go to the ribbon cutting, but I didn't make the picture because I left before the ribbon cutting, but that was great to go, for Blue Zones. So I tried to pop into a few events, and I don't know, kids seem, they're always happy when they're on campus, but I don't know, it just seems like there's less, besides the safety items, less push out. And I keep hearing about the, every 15 minutes. And so a lot of schools have done that. So I don't know I know it's a lot of time and is a big commitment, but it's interesting how many did participate. And is it a financial obligation as well?
So I think most of it, actually, we would get money back from CHP to cover most of the costs. I think the biggest issue this year when we talked about it was that it was the WASC accreditation year.
Right.
And so the high school staff said,
No, thank you.
no, please, maybe next year we can look at it. It's an odd timing with CHP as well, that they want it in October. When I think it really has a better impact when you hit in the spring months, when we're kind of looking at prom and graduations and all of those things. So that would be my preference, is that we offer it at that time of year, just simply because, again, I feel like that's an impact time.
Right. And then the graduations were all great. I really was thoroughly impressed with middle school. The students' poise and just how they articulated their speeches, and all those kids, it was 1 hour. And so the high school, I know back in the day, it must have been 3 hours back in the day. I don't know, 3 or 3.5 hours, because they embedded the awards and the scholarship and all the goodies with it. And now we're kind of creeping back up. I know there was this, unfortunately there was an emergency at the beginning, so we lost about 20 minutes. But just looking at the time, because a lot of people were stressed because, of course, you have the senior parents that are planning this safe and sober, and there was a DJ saying, have you guys not, have you stood us up? No one's there because they're supposed to meet up, you're trying to, so trying to honor all those pieces, because I always get those comments that, just a time limit. so that people can expect to get out on a, you know, I don't know, if some of those speeches, because it seems, I don't know, if there's a lot of student speeches too, if some of those can happen at the awards or the scholarship nights, just to honor everyone's.
Yeah, and I think
time.
that's one of the conversations we're trying to have with students, is to say, well, we haven't traditionally placed limits, is, we wanna, we wanna maybe
Yeah.
trim those back just a little bit to a point where it is a little more, keeps a little bit more flow going.
Because it's hard to keep it all, because the parting words, I think people love too, but I mean, there is something's gotta give, because it
Yeah.
is extending too long, because it's affecting people's
Ability to,
evenings
Well,
and the plannings of all of that. This just seems like people get more stressed than they should, for it should be a very fun event.
Yeah, we had pizzas ordered for 7, and they called us at 7:30, and we're like, yes, we're on the way.
Yeah, don't
but-
give up our pizzas.
Yeah.
The town's packed, and everyone just seems more like, ooh, like
Yeah.
it should be a really fun,
It was, yeah.
non-stress thing, and it ends up being
Yeah.
encroaching on people's time, and then there's this negative pushback.
Yeah, and if there's not a limit on the speeches, especially 'cause if we're gonna, do them bilingually, and it doubles the time of the speech, so it's just something to be considered for sure.
Yeah.
The feedback I got pretty strongly from numerous people was not to do the translations. Just have the translation services available and let the child choose which language they want to do the speech in.
And time allotment.
And then if people need it translated, then they use whatever, because there's a service, there's a
Mhm.
thing that
Well,
we
that
already
got
provide.
pushed out, but I just don't think people know how to use it.
Well,
Yeah.
they'll learn, I mean,
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know.
I don't know what it looks like, people don't have headphones,
We did send out parent squares
Yeah,
ahead of
as I said,
time.
it was pushed out, but it
and-
wasn't used, I don't think.
I have to go back and check. I mean,
Yeah,
there were a few people who did,
Okay.
but I can go back and look at the report, and tells me how many
'Cause the
actually
middle
logged
school, it
into
was
it.
a lot of paper, but I appreciated that, because people could follow along. They had
yeah, that
all-
was another
all-
option, is
Yeah,
have them
was
you
to
know,
have
so
them
they don't
translated
feel
in
like
in the program.
Either party doesn't feel left out, because they know it's being said. They had it in each English and Spanish on paper, but that's a lot of paper. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't win, because you want everyone to be able to understand and enjoy the
I
celebration.
think the extra I think it's worth it, an
Mhm.
extra ream or two of paper.
I think
And also just to make sure they print enough.
to copy it, yeah, because there's manpower behind that, so,
Yeah, it's not just the reams of paper, but.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
yeah.
But that was just the feedback I received, but it was great.
Yeah, it was, I mean,
It was
it's
wonderful.
always, I'm so, thankful to be able to see the connections that the students have with the teachers and all the hard work, and everyone's really excited in that moment when they're getting their diploma. So it is one of my favorites, events.
It was a real honor for me to be able to shake out the kids' hands and say a little word or two to each one of them. And great to go to the TLC graduation at Katina Verona. That was fun to honor the student that graduated there. And yeah, it's gonna be weird not to have a child in the district
Another year now.
anymore. All right, anything else? No? Okay. Advanced planning, suggestions for future board meetings. I think after Tuesday, we don't have anything planned until our regular meeting in August. We were thinking about maybe doing the joint with so you'll,
Yeah,
back
we'll
to
work on
us.
that, yeah.
if we can pick a date for that with AGCO.
Because it would be nice with the equity work to have that input, even if we got it, just to try to streamline what's being presented
Mhm.
to the board. Maybe that would guide them, what we've been working on this, maybe we'll see that's what the report out would be like.
And just
following.
to keep the conversation going about goals and what data we want and what data, they present and all that, so it's
Mhm.
streamlined and consistent. Anything else for now? No? I will report out that was no one at board chat. There hasn't been for 6 months, maybe. I did suggest to Joe that we really rethink board chat. It's a very tough time, I think, for staff to break up the day. We always have a lovely conversation about the agenda and the meeting and things going on, but I don't know.
It's not serving its purpose.
Yeah, it's really not.
Is it a different time of day? I mean, I always thought like sack lunch, because you're doing it virtually and people have a lunch hour,
Mhm.
but I think.
But that's not
people's
even
lives are
consistent among,
busy.
yeah.
Yeah.
One of the suggestions, as Scott and I were talking, is next year I want to have a more formal, like student feedback for the superintendent. So like a student, not student council, but a student advisory board type thing. And to invite a board member or two to those meetings to come, and that way you can hear directly from students, and it's really valuable time, and you're hearing maybe a perspective that we don't always get represented in this room as much as we would like to.
Right, 'cause
So.
kids don't wanna come here and, express themselves.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and then your idea also, if I may share, of whoever's presenting their activities.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a great idea.
Yeah, so I was also saying that maybe we make a shift with our, the patriotic exercise to whichever school is presenting, that students come and do the patriotic
Oh, I
exercise.
like that.
And so that gets their voices in the room and gets them also used to presenting in a very formal kind of setting that doesn't
Right, I
always.
like that, 'cause that seems more,
And we can,
in line with,
yeah, task our two
equity.
student board members to
Yeah.
maybe
Right.
head that up and work with the kids to, on what they may wanna present or do, or, yeah. So I don't know, I don't know if we need to wait for another retreat to figure out the board chat. I don't, I'll talk to Joe about the August meeting, but it just,
we've tried,
Yeah,
we've talked
we-
about different ideas, but.
we just need to, or maybe it's the sort of thing where, Renee's logged in, and if someone joins, then she
She alerts us.
pings whoever and they jump on or something. If there's something on the agenda people want to talk about. Okay, and then housekeeping, just days through the summer again, our meeting next Tuesday, 5 o'clock is the ribbon cutting. Where should we go?
So we'll be, if you haven't been over, so at the back of basically the new preschool building, we'll be right in there. There's a covered walkway, so you just enter at the new office and just keep walking back, you'll see.
Come in through the main entrance and walk back.
Yeah,
Okay.
just come on back. And so if any of the public want to join us, that's where we'll be.
Okay.
And we have the ribbon, and we have evidently some very fancy shears, but not the really huge ones like we had at the Blue Zones ribbon cutting,
Those
so.
were pretty impressive.
Those were, so yes, we'll look forward to seeing everyone there.
And what are the 2 summer professional learning weeks?
So we have professional development that's scheduled for our staff at the last 2 weeks of July. So we've had staff started signing up, and those signups will continue probably up until a week or 2 out, as people's plans might change as they come up to it, to provide some support particularly in strategies to support our multilingual learners and math. Those are kind of the 2 really big focuses, along with restorative practices. So among those 3 things, really different sessions throughout that will support.
Great. So then our August meeting is the 14th?
7.
7th, first, before school starts.
Yeah, because we need it before the first day of school for some of the permits and
Oh, right,
different
right.
human resources pieces, and if there are any policy updates or things that we need to consider before that point, so.
Oh, it's August 7th.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
I may, okay.
Ouch.
It's
Well,
early.
my son's college orientation that day.
Okay.
So I may
We'll figure it
have
out.
to hand it over to Kathy.
Yep.
So, okay, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I'm happy to move to adjourn it